This is the Healey Brothers Podcast.
Good morning. Welcome to the Healey Brothers Pod. Brian Healey, John Koerner, Executive General Manager of Healey Brothers, and Mr. Accountability, Dave Anderson in the flesh. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So, Dave, you've had a career that is expansive. You've been in the industry for doing what you do now for about 30 years.
Yeah, about 30 years, yes.
I'm sure that most of our listeners, if not all, know who you are. Just in case somebody's been living under a rock for the last 30 years, can you just give us a little background of who you are, what it is you did, what you do now, and
Sure.
maybe a little of your special sauce?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had the company Learn to Lead about 26 years, and started it after running a car dealership group in Palo Alto. I started as a salesman in the car business, worked up in Texas, moved to California to run the stores, and I've written 16 books. Most of them are very applicable to any aspect of your life, just getting yourself better so you can get your business better. I've spoken in 21 countries, 49 of the 50 states. I don't know why they don't want me in Idaho. I'd go. But we're based in the LA area,
Yeah.
and we have a training center there and a podcast, and it's just been a great run. And we work with multiple industries. I mean, I'm a car guy by trade, but principles are principles. And so we work with law enforcement agencies. I've worked as a mindset trainer for 3 different college basketball teams, some professional athletes getting their thinking right, banks, oil companies. I mean, if it's a principle, it'll work if you work the principle. So that's the short course.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in this industry, and your name has been thrown around ever since I was old enough to remember walking through the showroom, Paul Mita or Lou Roselli or yourself, Dave Anderson, before I could probably even read.
We go way back. I mean, we've had an association for decades now. I mean, from early on. You guys got with us early on in when we were just getting started, really, just a few years in. So it's been a good run.
Before we get into the nuts and bolts, I see the ring there.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about collegiate sports, right? Wisconsin?
This is Wisconsin. So I've worked with 3 different Big Ten teams. I don't know why. They all ended up being in the Big Ten.
Maybe that's why Idaho doesn't like you.
Maybe that's it. I started with Indiana and won a conference championship with them. I have an Indiana ring, but this one's more recent. Then their rival hired me, and I work with Wisconsin. I worked with Rutgers a few years ago, and I don't teach people how to shoot a basket. I haven't shot a basket in 50 years. I help them shoot a 7th one with confidence after they miss 6. How do they bounce back from a bad game? If nothing's working, how do they still stay in the moment and try to make something happen? So just getting the head right, because the mind activates the skills and the talent anyway. So and I love it. Working with the young guys like that, and then some of them become pros. And so I work with a handful of professional athletes in the same role. So it's a good run, but this mindset stuff applies to business pretty well too, because we have skills and talents and experience in business that if our thinking's not right, none of that stuff gets maximized.
So, let's dive into that then.
Well, I'd like to know really, what I really want to figure out is you're a car guy 40 years ago, 30 years
Right.
ago. So what makes you leave the auto business, and what makes you think I can now be a trainer and help people? Like, how do you go from that mindset to this mindset?
Good question. I love the auto business. It saved me financially when I was a very young guy and I was broke, and I just got in and worked hard and as a salesman. And that's what I love is the trajectory, where you can go in it. I was running the group in Palo Alto, and it was bought by a public company, and it wasn't fun anymore. The bureaucracy, the micromanagement. But I'd already written my first book. And while I ran the group, I did all the leadership training. I wrote the programs. It's something that's always come easy to me. I've always loved doing it, like the favorite part of my job. So I had material, I had programs. It was already my sweet spot. Because of the book, I was already getting invitations to speak here and there. And I was writing a column, you may remember, for Dealer Magazine way back when. And I wrote that for many years, and we were already getting invitations. And so it was a fairly smooth transition. I walked home one day and I said to my wife, you're coming out of retirement because we're starting a business. I don't think I can deal with these people anymore at the corporate level. And so that's kind of how it transitioned. Yeah.
Right.
Now, the way that you teach this leadership, from my understanding and from your books, it's the main thing is changing it's incremental changes,
right?
And having a routine and having a a system in place, not necessarily drastically changing one thing about yourself.
That's right. Yeah, drastically changing one thing about yourself or your business, I think, is overrated. I think if you look at the subtitle of my last book, the book is Elevate Your Excellence, but the subtitle I like better than the title. The Power of Doing Ordinary Things Extraordinarily Well. And what I really think we all find is you don't need to do anything extraordinary to get from here to here to there. It's just doing those ordinary things extraordinarily well and doing them consistently. I mean, that's a separator. You know, the sometimes occasional situational person that executes versus the one that just brings it every day. And so, yeah, the little things matter a lot. We talk a lot about routines and rituals because your routines and rituals, they take you somewhere. Now, where they take you depends on the routine and ritual, and we don't get that time back. So we're always looking to maximize that. People like the basic approach. It's not academic. It's doable. The basics aren't intimidating. You know, we're not talking about academic theories here. We're talking about stuff that will really work if you really work the stuff.
Yeah, I think if you look, I was talking to Nikki before we sat down. I think that if you look at 99% of the successful people out in the world, regardless of what space they're in, they have a routine. You're going to have some outliers,
No doubt.
some true savants that maybe they don't have that routine, but they wake up the same way and they go to bed the same way every single day.
That structure, guys, you need structure. People resist it. They don't want structure, but the fact is, you know, human beings, we develop to our potential in a structured environment. Not when we're shooting from the hip, operating out of instinct, zigging and zagging, making life up as we go along. And I think routines also need to be tweaked, even like really good routines. You need to continue to make it more challenging because when a routine, even a good one, starts to feel too routine, it's probably not helping you as much as it once did. And so just like working out, if you're just doing the same thing every time, you can maintain, but you're not going to grow. Right, you got to add some resistance, add a little weight, add a little reps, and that's the same with any routine. What I really focus on are routines even before you're at work. See, a lot of people don't really think about that. They think about what's my work going to routine going to be. But even when I work with athletes, it's like, guys, great performance begins before it begins. You can't walk into your arena. You can't walk into a dealership looking for your first win of the day. Some people wake up stacking losses, cutting corners, doing less than their best, not making the bed, not hydrating, not eating anything nutritious, putting garbage in their mind, leaving dishes in the sink. Little things, but these are losses. This is not the best they could do. And that becomes a standard for them. And so in some areas of their life, they do the best, and in some areas, they do less than their best. The problem with that is now they got two standards, and you never know which one's going to wiggle its way out. So it's stacking wins early from the minute you wake up and just walking into work with momentum, not looking for it. And that's really what routines will do for you, and then just doing it every time.
So you teach accountability, and you teach it even for the highly successful, which we have a tendency to say, well, no, he's the best salesman in the dealership. Just leave him alone every day.
Right.
But you don't teach that, which sort of goes against some of the philosophies of management.
That's right.
And why is that? Why should we hold these very successful people accountable to?
I think that's a really good question. I think first, it's easier for someone to go from good to great than it is to go from miserable to mediocre. Because if you're already good, you've got a foundation of disciplines, work ethics, probably the right mindset. You can't leave that person alone. That person still needs to be challenged, and they need more mentoring, and they need more tools and more structure. Usually we take them for granted. They're doing great. Get down here with our 5-car Fred or whoever it is and try to talk them into 6. And I found as a sales manager, this is where I discovered it. It was easier to get a 20-car a month guy up to 30 than it was to get a 6-car a month guy up to 9. Because the 20-car person or the best technician or the best whoever, clerk, they're bringing you something to work with. You know, you don't have to wind them up and hug them and burp them and nurse them and bribe them and beg them every day. And so you have to stretch that person. And I had a coach tell me at Indiana when I was working with them, great advice. He said, Dave, nobody develops to their fullest potential at their own pace, because your own pace is always going to be too comfortable, too slow, too safe to really create the discomfort you need, which accountability does, to get to that next level. He said, we all need that stretching. And I will just tell you, the top performers I work with in the NBA, they're not rookies. These are really good guys that are doing really, really well, that know that they still need that nudge. They still need that straight talk and that accountability. The best people understand that.
You hold a second degree black belt in karate.
Right. Uh-oh.
How did, like, I'm curious as to what made you go down that path. And is there a correlation between the martial arts and learn to lead?
Oh, yeah. The martial arts philosophies had a huge influence on a lot of the things I teach, which I'll explain in a minute. But the first part of your question, I started doing mission trips and in my 40s in dangerous parts of the country. I worked with leaders of the underground church in Iran for 8 years. I was going over and working with the Russian people for 8 years. I was in some dangerous places. I wanted to know how to take care of myself. It was very practical. I never intended to go through a belt structure. I just wanted to learn basic street fighting. How do you get a gun or a knife out of your face, out of a chokehold, out of a headlock? But I fell in love with it. And my instructor, that makes a difference. Now, the instructor, he's a 7-time world champion. He's in 3 karate halls of fame. He lived 2 doors down from me. And so we developed this relationship. And I said, I was in it for like 90 days. And I walked home and I still had my weight belt on. And my wife said, you've been at this 90 days and you're still a white belt. I said, well, honey, I'm not going through the belt structure. I said, I'm just learning basic self-defense techniques. She said, well, do you love what you do? I said, yes. She said, well, are you going to do it for a few years? I said, most likely. She said, wouldn't you like to have something to show for it? I thought, well, that's a grand idea. So I went back to my sensei and I said, look, I want to start through the structure. And have I wasted the last 90 days? He said, oh no, we've learned things from various belts. So that's how I got started, fell in love with it, started in my 40s, I'm 64 now. But what I learned about it that's very applicable to business is you learn how to stay in the moment and not to worry too much about what happened or what's going to happen, how to master the moment in front of your face, how to bounce back from adversity, how to work through pain. And when you don't have your best stuff, how to give all you have to what you do have. Okay, I'm only about 50% effective today. Yeah. So do I just check out and wait for an easier match, or do I give 100% to that 50%? All this is really relatable. The number one thing I got out of it is how to stay hungry as you get higher in the ranks. Because a lot of times, there's 12 belts in my Tung Sudo style of karate. And, you get up to a red belt, and that's the belt right before black. That's the hungriest person there.
Red belt mentality.
It is, my friend. Yeah. It is the red belt mindset. My sensei told me early on, this is a life principle here. It just clicked with me. He pointed to the belts on the wall. He pointed to the red belt. He said, those are the most dangerous fighters in the studio. And I didn't make sense to me. I'm new, I'm dumb, I didn't understand. I said, well, what about the black belts? He said, don't get me wrong. We've got really great black belt fighters. He said, but here's what happens. Guys will train for years to take that black belt test. Some of them got to take it 5-6 times because you can't make one mistake. And when they make it, when they pass it, they have like this exhale mentally. Exactly. I have what? I have made it. I've arrived. Even though there's 10 degrees. I mean, most people won't stay fit enough or, live long enough to get all 10. I've done it a long time. I'm just a second. He said the first thing a black belt does when they pass the test, they start putting on weight because they're not coming in as often because they've arrived. And when they do come in, they're giving more advice than they are working their techniques. He said, but the red belt, he said, nobody quits as a red belt. You've gone that far, you got that much skin in the game, you're hungry, you're humble, you're coachable, you got urgency. He said, they're here every day. He said, I've seen more hungry red belts knock down or knock out complacent black belts. Then he told me the thing that really stuck with me. He said, here's the thing, Dave, if you ever get your black belt, continue to think like a red. Act like a challenger, even if you're the champ. Challengers are hungry, they're humble, they have something to prove. Champs get cocky, complacent, turn into know-it-alls, they lose their edge. I thought, well, there's your top salesperson of the month. Yes. There's the top leadership in the region. It's just, it applies to everything. And so that's probably been the most influential aspect of the martial arts that has influenced my business. I talk about the red belt mindset in books. We have clients that give red belts away to their hungriest person that month. It's symbolic of I still have something to fight for. I haven't arrived yet.
Ford Motor Company at their Las Vegas meeting just last week had a red belt mentality. They gave us, we all left with a red belt and a board to write our red belt mentality on. I love it. And then when we meet that goal to break the board.
I love it.
Break the board.
That's a beautiful concept. I taught that to them over 15 years ago.
It's so cool that we bring it up today.
And I had more Ford dealers that I've worked with send me pictures from being there at that meeting with the red belts. And I loved it. They embraced it. And this was back when Dave Mondragon was there, and he was like the biggest proponent of it. But Undelighted, they're still using it. Because it's not a fad. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Staying hungry is a lifestyle, and it's a constant challenge for people who are already doing pretty well. Even if you're not doing well, you can get used to your mediocrity, and you can learn to live with your misery. And that's not good either.
So you have 16 books out, right?
Yeah, 16.
Okay, so you're in this class today,
Hmm.
and you're going to tell this class they need to read one book only. Which of your books is that book?
You know, I've written some leadership books, and I realize leadership books may not apply, or people may not think it applies to them as directly as others. The one book I wrote that's the least business book, that's the most life book, like Get Your Life Right book, so you can get whatever you do right book, was actually the latest one, Elevate Your Excellence. The Power of Doing Ordinary Things Extraordinarily Well. It is it's the most position non-specific. It's about, look, this is about you, not your business. But if you get you better, your business is going to get better. That's the one I would recommend.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So work-life balance today
Mm.
seems to be the hot topic across of our country and Americans. And yet we teach this accountability and going the extra mile and putting in the extra effort and being better every day.
Right.
But we have this work-life balance type of mentality also that's going on within the organizations. And how do we master those two things? It seems to be a difficult thing at times.
It does. And I think it really depends on how people define work-life balance. A lot of people, they have this, what I think is a wrong idea of it. And they create this standard for it, that if this is your standard, you're always going to feel like you're out of balance and you're not going to feel good about yourself. And the standard is, I have to spend equal amounts of time in these various aspects of my life to have this balance, or a certain amount of time in different aspects. I don't think balance is about the time you put in as much as it is about what you put into the time. I know people who, they can't wait to get out of work and they go home to get, quote, work-life balance, and they're on the phone. They're on their computer, they're not engaged, they're not with their kids, they're not having conversations with their spouse. And so is that really balance, to be somewhere physically and somewhere else mentally? I think work-life balance happens when, look, I only have 2 hours at home tonight because I'm trying to make a better life for my family, busting my tail at work. So I'm going to give them all I got. I'm going to be where my feet are. I'm going to give all I have to what I've got. And guess what? When I'm at work, I'm going to get really good at what I do while I'm at work so I can actually leave work and not always have to put in that extra time or those extra days to get ahead. I think it goes right back to what we talked about, being where your feet are, mastering the moment in front of your face. That's where you get fulfillment. It's not just a certain amount of time you spend someplace. If you're just going through the motions there, that's not balance. That's just putting in time without regard to what you're putting into that time. So I think get wherever your feet are, be great in that spot, and you're more fulfilled, and that's where you start to feel that balance. But if you're measuring it by, am I spending a certain amount of time here or there, you'll always be disappointed because you'll never feel that it's right. And the fact is, when you're trying to build something great, you're going to have to put more in up front. Whether you're trying to get bills paid off, whether you're trying to get a certain house, there are peaks and valleys in our life where you're going to have to spend a little more time and effort here to get better in the long term. And if you don't figure that out, you might have a peaceful life, but it's not going to be very memorable or extravagant as far as what you're able to become or accomplish, in my opinion.
I think mentally, if you're not in the right profession or the right space, you might think that you're putting in too much time, but if you were doing what you loved or what you felt was your passion, you wouldn't mind spending that extra time because it wouldn't feel like work.
I'll just tell you, when I got into the car business, I had no passion for the car business. Okay, it's not like people say, I just don't have a passion for what I'm doing. Well, that's not always practical. But what happened is I got really good at selling cars. And it's like, this is my thing. I see a high ceiling here. And when I started to make more money and eat better food and live in a better house and drive a nicer car and buy my wife nicer things, I became very passionate about the car business. I think if you're not passionate about what you do, get better at what you're doing and you tend to love where it's taking you more. But people, I just don't have a passion for this. Get better at it and see if that changes, People overrate that. But some people have passions, honestly, for stupid things. They're going to make them broke. I mean, people say, oh, follow your passions. No, follow your gifts. Follow your gifts. You figure out, hey, I'm good at this. I didn't think I really had a passion for it, but I'm good at this. This might be my thing. Let me follow this. But if you have a passion that's taking you nowhere, you might enjoy your passion, but it's, you're going to end up broke and embarrassed someday.
My last question for you is this whole social media connected human beings to these Apples and Androids and everything else, it seems like people are at work, but they're not working.
That's so true.
And how do we as a company and how do we as leaders manage that with our people? And how do we address this? It's a problem today. It really is.
It is. It is. And people address it in different ways. It all starts, you've got to have some type of clarity of expectations, or people will interpret their own expectations and do as much as they can without being corrected for it. In our business, and I'm not saying this is right, but we do have some guidelines for that sort of thing. What you tolerate will continue. And so in California, where we're based, you're required to give people 2 10-minute rest periods during the day. I don't know what we're resting from. We're sitting at desks all day. We're not paving roads or digging ditches, but we give them rest from resting. and then they have a lunch period. That's when you use your phones. Okay. I don't care what that's your time. You can use your phone. You can get on your social media, etc. If you're in a sales position and you communicate with customers, that's different. But a lot of people are not in a position where they're communicating with customers, yet they're still on their phone. So you have to have different types of expectations to fit the role. And you tweak them and you see what works and what doesn't. But you have to have some type of boundaries, or people create their own boundaries and they will take huge liberties with that. And getting people to work at work, I think, is one of the most persistent challenges we have. People at work, they don't work. And however, if you're a leader and you create really highly structured days for your people, they don't have time to waste. They don't have time for that nonsense. A lot of the times that's the problem. We don't have clear enough expectations, highly enough structured days. We give them too much leeway and they're all over the place. But I like having people that have to follow processes every day, and processes are protection. They're not punishment. They keep you disciplined. They keep you moving in the right direction. But managers that don't expect enough, or that leave too much up for grabs and just be where you need to be at the end of the month, that gives people a lot of leeway to do foolish things with that time. Keep them busy. Keep them so busy they can't engage in that nonsense. The objective of being at work is to work. I don't know why that's so hard for people to understand.
It is.
Yeah, sure. COVID was partly the reason.
Brother, you're right about
I mean, you've
that.
got Fortune 500 companies where you've got good employees that might be on the beach with a laptop, and are they really working? No, they're clocking in. But we see these types of issues, whether it's somebody, like you said, someone on their phone or doing block blast or Wordle or whatnot on the computer.
That's right.
Where maybe they need more structure, they need more tasks.
You watch these major industrial companies today just trying to get employees to come back to the office 3 days a week, and the employees are up in arms over it.
They rebel.
It's crazy. It's like,
I have to do what?
I'd have to give my card and to get out of my pajamas and go to work out of it.
Yeah.
It's the conditioning, the expectation they've had, and I tell you what, though, letting them live with it is not helping them or the company. You gotta turn it around, and we got to do it our way. We got to do it our way. You don't get to do it your way. We got to do it our way. Ultimately, that has to be the privilege you have as running a company. You get to set the standards. Now, you still need to enforce them, but you get to set them. They don't.
Better wrap it up here.
I want to thank you for coming out as a Healey Brothers again, the second time this year. We already have our dates booked for next year, so we're really excited to have you out here.
We do.
Working with our team. I will tell you that there's no other training that we do at Healey Brothers where every day at the end of your training, my phone goes off for the next half hour with, "What a great day. Oh my God, I got so much out of it." I actually had a technician last night text me and just say to me, "John, I got so much out of it," and really not just for work, but for me personally too. And there's no better feeling for me as a manager to be able to help people look at things in a different light and maybe recenter their goals and objectives and have a path to get there. So I want to thank you personally for that.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate your people's engagement and enthusiasm for it, and I agree with what you just said. If you can help them get better in their home life, that's a big win.
And that's better in their work life.
Absolutely.
Just the two are connected.
Carries over.
Dave, as we end this here, if you could give one motivational quote or principle that, an overall, what would that be to our viewers?
I'll give you a principle, and I'll tell you what happened. I pulled in through a drive-through the other day, and there's a kid great kid, had a great voice, great enthusiasm on the speaker. I was picking something up for my wife, and he loved my car. He said, man, that's a beautiful car. What kind of car is that? And I told him. He came back and said, what do you do? I said, I'm an author and I'm a speaker. He said, man, give me some advice. I said, I'll give you my advice. This advice I give to anybody. Whatever they require you to do here, do more, man. You're not going to get ahead doing just enough to get by, just enough to get paid, just enough not to get fired. Ask for more, do more, help somebody else out. It's not hard to separate. It's never been easier to get ahead. I would say this, it's not crowded at the top. It is crowded at the bottom. There's intense competition amongst the mediocre. So just outwork other people. Do more than is expected and you will stand out.
Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, hit that subscribe button, and follow us at Healey Brothers on all social platforms.